Welcome back to another episode of the New Wives Tales. And we're talking today all about the fear and dark side of motherhood because, believe it or not, we all have it in some capacity. So, growing up, I don't think I always had massive anxiety, but I think it progressively got worse as I got older. I remember in high school, it was more about what are other kids wearing? What do I eat for lunch? What do others eat for lunch? What sports? Am I keeping in shape? Am I wearing the right bra? It all used to just be little minute things like that, which at the time, granted, were big deals to you as a teenager and, someone who's getting ready to go off to college. And then in college, I don't know. It was fun. College was fun, had a good time, enjoyed myself. I went to Radford University, so go Highlanders, had a really good time. Did the whole sorority thing, did the whole fraternity thing, and enjoyed myself. And from an anxious perspective, it was all just looks and fitting in. And, I don't even think it was about smarts for me. I was a C student growing up. I'm sure my parents love me talking about that. But I went to a good school and I got a broadcast journalism degree and did nothing with that until now, of course, and having a podcast before in the lending realm, which we'll talk about me in that aspect another day. But this whole dark side, I think, only really came about when I had children. And it's a different level because it's an outer body level of anxiousness and, I think there's so many things that weigh you down as a mom right now, as in from social media, really. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's what's wrong with the whole world. Love it, hate it, wherever you stand on the fence, pole, or whatever fence. The whole thing is just, it can be really not great. And so I think because it can be really great and not great all at the same time. And I say it can be really great because there's a lot of answers you can find and there's a lot of yourself that you can lose all at the same time. So when we were growing up and when our parents were growing up, I feel like the whole world was just so different. You wouldn't get all of that in your face, right? You didn't have social media in your face. Those little squares that seem perfect and seem edited and seem just wonderful, you showing those moments weren't so prevalent. It was more just there's Sally, wow, she really had more groceries this week, seeing her from the neighborhood in her driveway, or just at brownies, right? Your moms and kids talking at your brownies and your Cub Scouts and stuff like that. It was just not the same world. There's nothing you can compare it to raising children right now. There's simply just not. I know we can go back to the basics and yes, eat, sleep, poop. That's what we need to do. Let's be real. But in education, obviously. But I think, the way of mothering now is just so heavy, so daunting, and so beautiful. And so, that dark passenger came about. I remember just after having kids, am I doing the right thing? Am I messing these kids up by yelling at them or gentle parenting? And what is the right way? Whether that's showing, should I cry in front of my kids? Should I not cry in front of my kids? There's just so many things that they're so prevalent and in your face right now. And that's what's really difficult is raising kids with that fear mentality and or black hole that we end up going down. And I do it. I'm so guilty of it. And my husband, tries to tell me all the time, Taylor, you need to not worry so much. But that's cute. I wish I could not worry so much. But from an anxious perspective, I remember this one point as a mother was my son was turning 4 and he was dying to go look at a lighthouse. And we went to go, just him, it's so hard with 2 kids having that one-on-one time with the both of them. And so make it a point to date your kids too. I say, not a date, but more so, yeah, kind of like a date. Make it special. Make it just about them. I think that's so important and it's really hard to come by. So if you have more than one kid, it can be really difficult to have that one-on-one time with them. So it was his 4th birthday. We found a lighthouse to go to. And I had my husband go first and me behind. I was holding my son's hand and then he would hold him. And I just, as we went up, I could just feel just this I've never been scared of heights before, ever, not once. And so I could just feel this tension building in my chest. And we made it up there, and I was like, stay to the side, stay to the side, freaking out for all the reasons. But it was a really big moment for me because, again, I had never had any fear of heights. And I don't know if it was a combination of me up there or him, our son up there, my husband up there, all of us up there. I don't know what it was, but it was bad. And so I remember we got back down and my legs were shaking uncontrollably. And I just thought to myself, wow, this is new. I have a massive fear of heights. And so that's a new one. I mean, if you're ever out there as a mom and you're just like these new things, like whether it's going to the grocery store and being scared of something, or if it's driving with your kids for the first time, there are all these very humbling fears that come out that you never knew you had until you had kids. Or just as you aged, these things just became more and more prevalent. I think there's this massive fear of rejection that boiling it down when it comes to like the Pinterest mom and being the perfect mother and stuff like that, and all these wives' tales of what you should and shouldn't do for your kids, whether it's from external forces or you're reading about it or you're perceiving it on social media or the media is in your face about it. There's all these things that really are just like, are we doing it right? Is it the fear of rejection? Is it just a fear that we've developed over motherhood or age? I mean, even to the point of this podcast, I remember kicking it down the road. This is something that I've been wanting to do. I'm passionate about telling other moms, having guests on and talking to other moms about stuff that work for them that you might have never heard before, bridging that gap for fellow mothers, for fellow entrepreneurs. That's something that I'm very passionate about. And I remember just being like, I shouldn't do it, finding all these excuses not to do it. And I will never forget my very best friend, one of them, had said, Taylor, go on and talk about how nervous you are about this podcast. Talk about the stuff that makes you raw and vulnerable, and you're not alone in that. And so being able to talk about it, you see, God forbid, you see all these influencers out there, if you're on social media, and if you're not, like, kudos to you, because I don't know, I like to think that I could do that, but unfortunately, I think we're all just so addicted to it that I just don't know that we can. But if you're not on social media, all these influencers are out there and they're doing their thing and they're making a ton of money and they're just average ladies. Like they're nothing special. Their teeth aren't made of gold. Like they weren't born, these beautiful women. I mean, some of them are beautiful. They're all beautiful. We're all beautiful in our own way. You get what I'm saying. But like, if they can do it, you can do it too, right? And so, but they started somewhere. And so that's when my girlfriend was just in my ear about that. I'm like, you're right. You're so right. I should just do something for myself if I'm passionate about it. And there was this gap between podcasts and other moms out there and like old wives' tales and how that doesn't make sense right now because we're raising our kids in a completely different environment, completely different world than when we were growing up. And so, here I am. So there has been that fear, and I've almost found every single reason not to do it. Fear of rejection. What would people think of me? Sure, my message isn't applicable to everybody, but no one's is, right? Everyone has their own take on things. These are all just my opinion, my thoughts, other people's thoughts, things I've learned along the way. There's all these things, and they're so important just to get the word out. Okay, let's talk about another fear. So I remember when the kids were little, like little. So if you're a new mom, and I mean, COVID is around still, but like if you had kids prior to COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, your momming is just a little bit different because we've been through the ringer. And I think it makes us stronger, but we were living in this world of fear for so long. And so I remember, if you've got a new baby, was where I was going with this. I remember like trying to be very careful about who touched my kids, who kissed my kids, what my kids did, washing their hands. God forbid you use too much antibacterial soap or else it washes the good germs off, but you're supposed to wash your hands all the time and you sing happy birthday while you do it. 30 seconds, all the things that they say to do. But I remember just freaking out, not knowing what would I do as a new mom if my child gets sick? And how would I know? How do I treat it? Motrin, Tylenol, like what do I do? And so I remember just freaking out and not knowing, like, all right, well, if we get a fever, and now 6 years into motherhood, it's just like, yep, you're sick again. Wipe your nose, do the this, do the that. But in the beginning, it's very scary because you're not sure if is it this, is it pneumonia? Like, what could it possibly be? They're tiny little immune systems. So that was a huge fear for me. But I can tell you, on the other side of this, that gets better the second time around you have kids, though however many times. If you don't, like, the more the age that they grow, that changes, that evolves, and you get to be a better mom because of it, because you're seasoned. But fun facts, like, I remember Holt, my son, he couldn't do the purple Tylenol because it made him like a spaz. He would cry and not be able to, I mean, he can't articulate himself. He was, 6 to 10 months old, and it would make him wired. And so we were like, all right, it doesn't happen on Motrin. And we specifically use the dye-free stuff because of it. More studies have come out to show the dye-free stuff is much better for them, blah, blah, blah. Whatever works for your baby, don't knock it. But that was one thing for us where I was like, this fear that I had, I was just so scared. And I knew that, like, okay, can't use the purple Tylenol. And so that was a little weird trick along the way. And as they got older, we've gone through the viruses, the rashes. There was a Christmas tree rash at one point, and I'll never forget, the director of the preschool that he was at was like, oh, that's a rosacea bacteria of some sort. And I was like, rosacea? Like, that's the stuff you get on your face, and it's a little red. You could zap it down the line, depending on if you're into that stuff. But not the kids, sorry, adults, right? You get some rosacea on your face. I have some, whatever. I did not attribute what she was saying to the fact that it could be a bacteria of some sort. And we took him to the doctor, and sure enough, it was like a Christmas tree on the side of his body, a rash, red rash. And the doctor was like, yeah, this is the rosacea. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she was right. I said, I'm always going to go to the preschool director because she's seen it all, Anyway, but then, the strep stuff, never having strep freaked me out. Fun fact about that. And all pediatricians are different, just like all of us are opinionated. We are all different. But this pediatrician had walked in, and my son had the strep test. Strep was going around the class, and we were getting ready to leave for England, the first time that the kids had been on a plane, and the entire class had strep. It was the week before spring break, and I was like, great, load us up, because we were in for it with a 2-week trip to England. Anyway, he came in after doing this. The nurse had done the strep test, and he looked straight at my son and said, you've got strep. And I said, oh my gosh, did the test come back that quickly? And he said, no, but he has the reddest lips in the room, the most cherry lips in the room, and there's a white around his mouth. And had I not known that, no one has ever told me that. No one. And so knowing that now, I'm like, every time he has strep in the future, and also I wanted to come on here and tell all my friends as quickly as I could, because no one has ever said that that's kind of one of the biggest indicators, besides the fact that depending on your child, if it's a sore throat or if it's vomit, what have you. But that was an interesting little new wives' tale, if you will, was the pediatrician had said that. And now I just want to bestow it upon everybody that if you see that, it could potentially be strep. I think the biggest thing in life is the fear of getting it wrong. And for me, I always describe myself as a golden retriever because I just want to be a do-gooder. But for me, the fear of getting things wrong, momming, wifing, owning a home, being a good person, doing the right thing work-wise, money-wise, I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing at all times. And so there's a fear that you can talk to people about it and you can overcome it. But I'm here to tell you that this whole dark side is very unfortunate, because I think we are in a really weird time in the world where it's totally normal to be fearful about so many things. Should you? No. Are we? Yes. And so you're not alone. And as you age, sometimes more and more comes out, and it brings up itself up and really comes to a head in really weird ways, but you're not alone. And I just think that this podcast is a place where I hope you come and you listen and you find stuff that's interesting. But the fear and the dark side of momming is no joke. So you're not alone in this, and you're doing the right thing. I said this in the second episode, just saying that your kids are exactly who they need you to be. And that's why it was chosen that way. Anyway, thanks for joining in another episode of the New Wives Tales. I hope to see you soon. And thanks again for joining.